Hello, true believers, and welcome to another edition of BK's Bullets. My name is Jim Afanis, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Arrow series finale. Now, I'm going to be getting into a lot of spoilers today, so if you haven't yet watched it, do yourself a favor and save this video for later. It's something you absolutely have to watch on your own. I will admit I cried at least 3 times during this finale. I love Arrow so much. It's so near and dear to my heart. It's been a show that I have really enjoyed, mostly from the beginning to the end. There were a couple episodes in there that were a little goofy, but it always drew me back. Some action scenes, something Ollie said always brought me back to the show. And what a send-off for the show. If you guys saw my video previously on my review of Crisis, I was very critical of the show. I felt that Ollie didn't get the proper send-off that he deserved, and I would like to eat my words. They did a phenomenal job of closing out this series, of really showing us exactly the sacrifice that Ollie made, really showing us what it impacted in the greater world, and it brought back just about every major character in the show to have one more moment, to have one more closure, and it just did a beautiful job of sending off a phenomenal series. Remember that at the end of Crisis, Ollie basically becomes the Spectre and sacrifices himself to merge all of the Earths into Earth Prime. It is really unclear at that point what that means, particularly for Star City. And now that the Arrow has picked up for the last episode, because if you recall, last episode was the Canaries kind of backdoor pilot, we really get to see what happens to Ollie and to all of his friends. Now, we obviously know what happens with Oliver, but they did a really cool thing here. And they made the show somewhat circular. It shows a lot of flashbacks of Season 1 Arrow. And Season 1 Arrow was gritty, it was dark, it was violent. Recall then that Oliver Queen did not go as the Green Arrow, he went as the Hood. And he was just a mass murderer. Recall he had his dad's book, and what he would do is he would find a person of the week, hunt them down, and murder them. And Diggle, his partner, and ultimately his best friend, and definitely one of the main stars of this show, at this point kind of realizes what Oliver's up to and says, Oliver, there's another way. You don't have to be basically a murderer anymore. You can choose, you don't have to give yourself up. You don't have to become something else. And that something else doesn't have to be a murderer. And there's this incredible fight scene, which definitely is from Season 1. It's just rehashed, but it just shows you how gritty and violent the show was at the beginning. Something that I wish it had stayed a little bit more true to in its roots, but I'm not going to criticize that. Oliver systematically working his way through this factory, basically taking out henchmen. I counted at least 30 people he killed. At least. He was dropping arrows like just bombs, just headshot, leg shot, breaking arms, breaking legs, knocking people off cliffs. He gets to the main big bad and he chooses not to kill him. That was the first time that he had ever done that. I remember that episode very well when it originally aired many years ago. And he goes back to Dig and he says, you know what, Dig, maybe you're right. Maybe I'll learn to trust you. And maybe that this villain that I've kidnapped, I'm going to put him in jail. Maybe not everybody has to die. The full first circle thing of that is that villain rears his head again in this episode, kidnapping William, causing all the heroes to unify one more time, including Felicity, to go on this wild goose chase to figure out who has got William. And it ultimately turns out that Mia is the one who finds him. And it is that guy. He's been released from jail. He did not learn his lesson. He's re-kidnapped Oliver's son. He's going to kill him to prove a lesson, to prove a point that, people can't change. Mia, being the trained, warrior that she is, has an opportunity to take him out with an arrow and does not. And it just shows that she learned the lessons from her father. She didn't have to kill this guy. She could save a little bit of herself, and she didn't have to go to the dark side in that sense. And it was just so well done. I'm starting to tear up. I'm not lying. It was so well done because it just showed the impact that Oliver's had on this character, just on me alone, his daughter, which he really didn't get a lot of interaction with based on the fact that all the time travel stuff happened. There was a little bit of crossover towards the end there of the last season, but not a significant amount. But it was really, really endearing to see that the show reinforced the lessons that the characters have been trying to show us, that we can be better people. And I thought it was very, very well done. During that, we had a lot of nice tag ups. We got to see Ragman return. He's apparently regained his powers. I'm not a big fan of him, but he works with Mad Dog, which was really cool. They get to share a little bit of dialogue. We did get to see Mr. Terrific, not in costume though. He was there kind of helping out Felicity, who does make a return. I'll get to her in a minute. And then we had Roy and Speedy, and they get married, basically. Roy proposes to Speedy and says that he can't live without her. It was really cool to see all these characters in little snapshots. We got a really nice scene of Detective Lance talking with Laurel, and we got to see Dinah and Diggle kind of coming to terms with this is the end. Really, down the line, across the board, every character really had a moment. Even Tommy Merlin, good old Tommy Merlin, makes a triumphant return. And that's what I mean about how we really start to see the impact of this. And we get to see exactly the fact that when Oliver died and he rebuilt the world into one world, each character that was left behind was the best person of themselves. And it was cool to see Tommy has been resurrected from the dead. His mother has been resurrected from the dead. He basically was able to right all the wrongs that he himself did. And that was really, really cool to see that he had this great power and he chose to do the good things with it. He didn't give Roy his arm back. I will admit, just a little lighthearted moment in there. Roy still had the mechanical arm, but okay, at least he's alive, right? And he's going to live happily ever after with Thea. And that was great. Even Ra's al Ghul's daughters were there. Just the whole gang. Really everybody. And go down the line. But I'll say this. Some really amazing moments came from this episode. A lot of closure for me personally as a fan. Getting to see characters kind of have one last conversation with others. There was a really, really touching moment there with Detective Lance and his daughter. When she says, basically Oliver had a chance to reset the world and he didn't bring Earth One Laurel back. He left me. Why did he leave me? Why didn't he erase me and return back to, Earth One Laurel that died, a couple seasons ago? And Detective Lance says, because you're perfect and you're right where you need to be. And I'm going to cry again. Man, that was just so amazing. It was such a cool moment because such redemption for her. I really love the Black Canary character a lot. She really went through a lot, especially coming over as Earth 2, being a villain for a long time, finding that redemptive arc. We got to see a little teaser of that. Hopefully Canaries gets greenlit. We got to see a little bit of that in that show, and then here again in the Arrow finale, really cementing the fact that she has reformed and she has become her best self, which is what Ollie's kind of dying, what he kind of died for, was this rebuilding of Earth. And that's where we really get to see about how everybody's back. And Ollie has been able to fix all the rights and the wrongs, and Tommy Merlin's back alive and well. And Mr. Terrific seems to be doing great. Not that he died or anything. Felicity makes an appearance, as I mentioned. It was really, really touching. Couple really major jaw-dropping moments for me. We'll jump to the end first, and then I'll get to the one that really made me very excited. Was Felicity basically going with the Monitor to go be with Oliver in the afterlife, and saying goodbye to her family and her friends one last time, and just the energy she brought, that character, that actress, Emily Bett Richards, just really how the cast just seemed to light up when she was around. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I noticed it. I noticed a very different demeanor in all the characters. how she returns and basically, you know, they bury Oliver. There's no body. They just bury him with like mementos and trinkets. They all get together. Flash is there. Supergirl is there. The whole crew is there. And everybody gets to say goodbye in their own way. And she basically, she being Felicity, goes with the Monitor to go live with Oliver happily ever after. And the last scene of the show is them standing together in the first place they met, which was the mom's office in basically the afterlife, where they can be together forever and happy. And it was very touching. I'm really glad to see that Ollie got a happy ending. I'm really happy to see that he got a happy ending because he deserved it. This guy really went through some shit, for real. And it was really cool to see Felicity there with him, and they finally get to be reunited, and it's over. He gets to rest now. Other heroes will rise. He has empowered and his spirit is really it built up so many other people that the world's in safe hands. I really like how they made him the focal point of the episode without really having too much of him. I mean, there's a lot of flashbacks of his past when he was just smoking those guys in his kind of back to that Arrow 1 season 1 flashback. But I love how he was the focal of the episode, but it really just showed his kind of spirit. And I think it really cemented for me just how unified the team had ultimately become at the end. Because there's a lot of seasons in there. Recall that, for a while the team splintered and fractured and Oliver went on his own. And, he went through a lot of stuff. It was a very, very messy divorce. And I get it. There's a lot of seasons, a lot of episodes to fill, but everybody fought and broke up many times. But it was nice to see at the end, everybody was galvanized and united. Even his long lost sister was there, from his father's weird marriage. She was a villain towards the end of the 6th season. The only one we didn't get to see was Malcolm Merlin. He's the only one that didn't actually make an appearance that I had seen. But that's okay. So the one other moment, and then I'll get into the one that just blew me away. Malcolm Merlin, he wasn't there, unfortunately, as I mentioned. But his son Tommy was there, and that was really cool to see Tommy kind of back and alive and well. That poor guy, I think he got written off way, way too early. Towards the end there at the funeral, when the family's reuniting and Moira's talking to Thea, newly engaged Thea, to Roy, and Keiko, the sister, comes by, and they're talking. They notice that Oliver has not brought his dad back to life. Oliver basically has this, when he dies, he basically is God almost in a sense, and he basically rebuilds the earth in the way he wants, or at least people. And it was interesting that his dad was not brought back. I hypothesize, as Moira did, that it was kind of out of his power. It was kind of after, he could change people that he impacted, but not necessarily that impacted him. And clearly his father's sacrifice, which was a little gruesome, when his father committed suicide on that life raft after killing that guy so they could save water, essentially. That really obviously shaped Oliver into the man he was, and that couldn't be brought back. That really was part of Oliver. So I thought that was an interesting touch and an interesting nod to just the trauma that he went through, losing his father. But by far the best moment, really, and the hero of this episode is Mr. John Diggle. First of all, the actor, David Ramsey, was live tweeting the entire episode. And I love that because I felt like I was there with him. Brent did not watch this episode with me live. I was on my own. My wife went to bed, so it was me crying my eyes out, watching David Ramsey's tweets, holding my dog, texting Brent during commercial break. And it was just cool that he was there. I've always liked Diggle. I think he's a great, great kind of sidekick character. He was the one who had the hardest time letting go of the mission. And he's always been very military-based. Obviously, there's many episodes where he goes back in the military and he comes back out. He goes back and forth. He goes to Argus, comes back out, whatever. Very, very interesting that he had such a hard time letting go. After everything's done, and his Oliver saved, his son's been saved at one last time by Mia, and the whole circular story of the first guy that Oliver didn't kill ends up being the last guy. Blah blah blah. Star City has no more crime. Everything's safe. Life is good. Diggle still has a hard time letting go. He's a soldier. And he finally, at the end, he even says, I need to let go. I know I'm the last one to understand this. I'm okay with not being the hero anymore. I can move on. And I felt bad for him. I honestly felt some pity for Diggle in the sense that, he lost his best friend, and he's the one who gives the speech at the end, which was phenomenal. He gives this nice voiceover to kind of close out the series with, little vignettes of what everybody's doing, and it's him talking basically to Oliver's grave, saying, you were a great friend, and I'll miss you, and you brought out the best in everybody, and thank you for the gift you've given us. And it was very, very emotional, really was. And you see he's kind of almost in a sense defeated. Diggle's kind of like, he hangs up his Spartan helmet, and he's kind of like, well, I'm done. I've won. In a sense, we should all be happy. The world is saved. Well, at least for this season, but there's always more villains to fight. But, the world's in a better place thanks to Oliver Queen and his friends and the sacrifice that they've all made for the year, for the years that they've all been vigilantes. But Diggle just seems to have a hard time with it. So he's basically packing up his van, and he's closing up shop, and he's leaving, and a meteorite comes down, and it hits him and blows him back into the van. And I'm like, what is this, right? And he walks over, and he opens the box, and it's the freaking Green Lantern ring. Wow. Even if they never make a Green Lantern show, I don't know if they will or not. I know there's been a lot of rumors about the nameplay of John Diggle and John Stewart, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not a Green Lantern guy at all. Brent can definitely talk more to this than I ever could. Wow. In the sense that if they make more shows and he's the star, hell yes, phenomenal actor. He's built like a freaking tree. He deserves it. He's great. I love him. If he's not, if this is the end, and this was just a little teaser and just a what if, even better. And this, not even better. Good for his character in the sense that he has a purpose again. He's now a hero once again, and he's needed in the world, and he has the powers, and he has the ability to, continue to fight crime, which is really what his purpose has been from the beginning. So as much as it's Oliver's story, I really feel like it's this Diggle story as well. And I loved it. I loved really everything about this episode. I felt like the characters that mattered most to Oliver got the most screen time. Definitely the characters that were more ancillary to the story, like Mr. Terrific and Ragman and Layla. Some of the other ancillary characters you see kind of in the background. That, oh, I remember him. I remember her. Yeah, great. They're there. But, it's really that core group, Oliver, Felicity, Laurel, and Diggle, kind of like the main crew, and then his children. Not so much William, really more Mia. Maybe partially because they want to build up the show, to Mia. But, William is there, but he's not as important. And the reality is, even in the 2040 stuff, he's not that important. So it did such a phenomenal job closing it out. I really have to give my hat off to the writers of this episode to really encapsulate the entire message and the entire embodiment of the entire arc of all the episodes and put them in such a meaningful way that wasn't just fan service. It really did answer a lot of hard questions. It really showed us what's next for our heroes. And it gave me, I can't speak for everyone, but it gave me personally a lot of closure. I've been part of the Arrow universe for 7.5 years, watching it religiously and talking about it, not on YouTube or anything, but to Brent and just reading all the episode reviews and just being on the subreddit and being part of that, and it's sad because that part's gone now, but the fact that the characters get the respect they deserve, I think that's the key here. The fact that, Laurel, confides in her father and he's like, you're perfect. And that's why Oliver didn't replace you, because you're the best you can be now. It really gives her a renewed sense of, mission and drive. Maybe we'll see that in the Canaries. I don't know. Even with Diggle and Roy, realizing he can be better, just really down the line. So I loved it. I know I went long. I know I rambled in this video. I don't care. I'm emotional. I did my best not to cry, But I'll tell you what, I loved it. And thank you so much to Arrow and to all the cast and the producers and everything of this show. It was an amazing, joyous, wonderful ride for me. I loved every second of it. I wish it wouldn't end, but I know that all good things must come to an end. And with that, I'd like to close out this video. I hope you guys found it interesting and informative. This show should be celebrated and revered, particularly that season with Deathstroke. God damn, that was so good. And I'm sure as more CW shows, as I get more interest in them and continue to enjoy them, you can expect more content from me on Brent's channel talking about it. I am considering getting back into Batgirl after this. Batwoman? So I always get that screwed up. I'm considering getting back into Batwoman just because I like that rugged hero, and I saw what Oliver became over the years, and it was so transparent to me seeing the change from episode 1, season 1 to the finale episode, how much of a person he had changed, and I love that redemptive arc. I definitely can see shades of that in Batwoman, and I feel like for that reason, I need to go give it another chance. With that, though, like I said, I'm done. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, I will see you guys in the funny pages. And P.S., Arrow, you have not failed this city.